Hello boys and girls, and welcome to episode 2 of our journey on the season server. It's been a couple of days since the last part, and to be fair with you, for the past 2 days I didn't even play. I took a small break from the game, so in reality there are about 3 days worth of progress to talk about today. For the rest of the time I was just basically AFK training in Dragon for those sweet skill experience points. So since last time I actually did quite a lot despite my small AFK time. I started by first fusing those tier 1 pets that I mentioned earlier, you know, the tier 1 hawk that I got from the main questline, and the old tier 1 I had from way back when I started the game and never ended up using because of course it's a tier 1, so it's kind of useless to me. And I got a tier 3 out of that, so quite happy about it. I finally, after all of this time, can use that hawk, you know, as another tier 3 pet to replace the older ones when I get bored of how those look like. Besides that, I took your feedback from the comments and decided to finally take on that Chenga tome questline. I delayed it for quite a long time. I know it came out a while ago, you know, probably over a year ago, but I never ended up doing it because, as I mentioned last time, I'm not a big fan of questing in general, and I never really had a need to complete that questline since I don't reroll often enough to need to do questing and get that extra experience. But in this case I felt like, since this is the season server and I'm kind of trying out new things, why not complete this questline, try out questing for experience for once and see if that is so much better than grinding as people claim it to be. So after a while, I don't know how long it took me, I completed the entire questline, I got the Chenga tome, and then I went on YouTube to search some videos on exactly how questing works, because I never really understood how questing can give that much experience. Apparently how questing works is you just simply go to different cities, different nodes on the map, and you try to find all of the NPCs that have this complete yellow border with quests that actually reward you experience, and almost always these are one-time quests that you don't repeat. As far as I understand, they are repeatable in terms of per each individual character, but they are once per character quests, and basically that's how you do questing. You go to a certain city, you complete all of the quests there, you move to the next one and then to the next one. In my case, I started from a small village close to Galfian. I forgot the name. It will be on the screen as the background footage rolls. Close to the Star's End on that region. I went through a couple of nodes there in succession, and I believe it took me maybe 1 or 2 hours in total to just follow along with the guide and watch something else in the background, you know, in between getting instructions to where to go next. I started having about 8% total experience, and by the time I stopped I was at around 58%, so I got basically half of my level just from questing. Again, I don't know exactly how long it took me, I didn't really keep track of that, but later on I did do a test of comparing experience to questing, so you can expect a video on that coming out maybe in a few days. After I got bored and I figured, you know what, I don't exactly have a baseline to compare grinding to questing, I decided to go back to Camasilvia to pick up the weekly quest that I still didn't do even once on the season character, and I decided to go for Fadus because even now I didn't check. I don't think there is a weekly quest for Polyforest. If there is, then my loss, but I picked Fadus because it seemed to be the closest one with the weakest monsters. So I started the 5000 Fadus monsters with about 58% experience, and by the time I was finished, about 40 minutes later, basically I got bored and I didn't feel like staying there for 1 hour, I was at around 65% experience. Even though Fadus isn't really amazing experience wise, like it's not that good, still that was very little in comparison to what I made through questing. So that kind of gave me the proof I was looking for, that yeah, questing is actually much faster experience wise. The downside is that you don't get any skill points and you don't get you get little to no money from questing. So while you do get a lot of experience, you're losing out on those skill points and the money. After that, I enhanced my gear a little bit more. I basically got all of my weapons up to 10, so that I can compare Awakening and Succession, so I can do some further testing and see which one I want to stay on. And I returned back to Fadus to do the other about half of the quests. I believe I stopped at around 2000 monsters, and then I did the other 3000 after that. When I was done with the 5000 monsters, at that point I basically had a pretty decent understanding of the differences, and now today I'm pretty much set on staying on Awakening, because while Succession feels nice, I can definitely feel, at least at Fadus, that half of my skills are completely useless because their AoE range is very, very small. So because of that, I just simply feel like I'm missing out on half of the skill tree. On top of that, I'm not able to max it out because it requires more skill points, while on Awakening I am able to actually max out my entire Awakening, plus all of the dashes and passives from the main skill tree. So because of that, for now I'm gonna stick to Awakening. So I completed my very first weekly, and as I was going to turn it in, I realized that the rewards are much worse than what I was actually expecting. You see, I thought I get all 3 of those rewards and not have to pick between one of them, but I guess it's still free items, but still, I thought the weekly would give me more enhancing materials. And what I realized throughout these past few days is that getting those enhancement materials is actually harder than I thought. Even grinding for 1 full hour, I'm still not getting enough of them to make enough enhancement attempts to feel like the progression is fast enough, in my opinion. In any case, after this, I basically went to Winnie Cabin and then to the Polyforest area, to the Lonely Cabin. Basically, I continued doing questing because I had the proof that it is actually faster, and I proceeded to keep on doing questing until I was basically level 60. I believe I believe I did level up from just questing, and I didn't go back to grind anymore after that. So once I got to level 60, once again I checked my skill points, and yeah, I clearly realized that getting no skill points from questing definitely hurts me in the long run, because I'm not even able to max out my Awakening skill tree now. After that, after I was level 60, I was kind of satisfied with my small progress, so I went back to doing the main questline. In particular, I continued doing the media questline that I didn't finish previously, just so I can have that out of the way and know that the entire media chapter is done. When I was done with the media questline, I got my second free pet, which was a cat, which I kind of mistyped as here instead of Hi. It was supposed to be named Hi, but now I have another tier 1 pet, and with this one I have no idea what to do, but hey, it's still nice. It's interesting to see how, again, I don't remember back when I did my main questlines, a very long time ago, on my first main, I believe. Back then we didn't have these free pets, so as a new player, it's interesting to see that you get, I believe, a total of 3 free pets from the main questline, plus another one from attendance. Like, you get at least 4 free pets from the game. You don't even have to buy them these days. I don't know how many people are going to get this reference, but do you like my Unasanas merch? Because I played a little bit with the dice on the Serendia costume, the standard questline costume, just to make it look a bit more interesting, and in the end the result turned out pretty amazing in my opinion, to a point where now I actually want to wear this one instead of normal Pearl Shop costumes. At this point I still didn't have a Pearl Shop costume, but funny enough, about half an hour later, or 1 hour later at most, I finally managed to pre-order the Ayo costume, one of the standard Awakening costumes for Kuno, and after opening the box I realized, 1 minute later, it doesn't really look as good as I thought it does. At least the helmet is interesting, but I'm not a big fan of the costume itself, so I kind of ended up combining the helmet from the Ayo costume with the Serendia one to make the finished version of my Unasanas costume. So quite happy about that one, and I feel like I might end up replicating this for other characters as well in the future. Maybe, I don't know, it just looks interesting in my opinion. So after this I went on to continue the main questline. I felt like while I'm at this, while I'm at, around the Valencia region, why not do the Valencia questline as well, at least the part 1 that is required for the seasonal characters, just so I can finish basically all of the questing, so I can go back to my standard grinding and all of that stuff, so I don't, for the next 3 months I wouldn't need to do any more questing. So I did the entire questline from start to finish with all of the bosses, all of the annoying parts going under the Valencia castle, and at the end of the entire questline I started the Valencia part 2. I did a couple of quests from that one until I got bored, and I said to myself, why would I even want to do Valencia part 2 if it's not needed on a character that I might not even play after the season ends. So I kind of stopped there. That's my entire progression quest wise. I finished Valencia part 1, I finished Media, and then I went back to questing for level 61. This is the part where I will go into more detail in the next video, where I'm actually going to compare with real numbers, questing to grinding. So I went back to Drigan, I grinded a bit of Blood Wolves or Cactums in particular, just to get a standard baseline for the experience rate from those. Spent about half an hour there, actually up to 1 hour after I finished the test, just to finish my scrolls or to almost finish them. After that I moved to Polyforest for the same reason, just to test it, see how fast I can grind it and the experience rates there. Again, spent almost 1 hour there grinding, half an hour for the test, and then about half an hour going back to the season servers for those enhancement drops. And after that I finally started to do the actual questing part. Questing from 60 to 61 was actually, it took longer obviously compared to 59 to 60, because this time I felt like going from, basically I wanted to get the rest of my level, so I started with about 11% experience and I wanted to get all of the 89% left. I started in Heidel, I moved all the way to, I believe, some nodes, Foreta, Hamlet, something close to the Camasylvia region. That's where I started the questline. Basically I continued with I will link in the description a video that I followed to do questing, and that's the area where I stopped previously, so I continued from there, and from that Hamlet place I basically moved from node to node all over Camasylvia, all over Drigan. I went to Shereka Necropolis and a bunch of other areas around the Drigan and Camasylvia region, and it took me about 2 hours in total to do this, basically following a guide and not knowing beforehand where to go and what to do. If I did know beforehand all of this, probably I could have done this in less time, but in my case, as a first time experience, it took me about, I believe, 2 hours and 15 minutes, something like that, to get the entire rest of my level and hit level 61. While I did say that I don't like questing as much, like, again, I'm not a fan of questing, I did learn something from this experience. Spending 2 hours doing all of this wasn't as boring as doing grinding. For whatever reason, again, even though I'm not a fan of the process, at least moving from place to place, speaking to a lot of different NPCs, and in general just having a quest that lasts for like 30 seconds to 1 minute and then moving on is much better than grinding, where you just circle a couple of monster packs for 1 hour over and over. I don't know, the 2 hours felt like they went by much faster than a usual 1 hour of grinding. Again, I was watching stuff in the background besides the video guides that I would just pause every single time. I would just simply look for, what area to move to next, and then I would just go back to watching my shows or whatever. Still, spending the 2 hours questing feels like the right way to actually get to level 61. Again, I will compare the numbers later when I have the time, but for now, it is a lot faster to quest to 61, and while yes, I am missing out on the skill points and the money per hour from grinding, I feel like spending 2 hours to get to 61 should be a priority, and then once you are 61, just go back to grind for those skill points and the money for the gear and all of that, because the experience rate is a lot faster than grinding. I'm just gonna say that as a first impression. So that's basically the entire progression I've made on the past couple of days. Since then, since I got level 61, I've been AFK training a lot. Again, I didn't really touch the game for about 2 days, so a lot of AFK training and a lot of sitting doing nothing because I forgot to buy books and all of that. I believe I am 5 days in on those daily quests for the season character I mean, so you know, I have to do 40 of them in total, so quite a long way to go there, at least an entire month left, and I'm already level 61 in a week. It took me about a week to hit level 61 and have decent enough gear to grind a couple of places. I think next up, after I'm done with this video, I'm probably going to go and grind some Blood Wolves or a similar area and just see what I can manage out of a couple of hours there. So until next time, well, stay happy. If you enjoyed this series, I kind of don't really mention this a lot of times, but I feel like the engagement is going down, so maybe people don't really want to see this series as much. If you enjoy this series, maybe consider leaving a like to the video so I can have some reassurance that people actually want to see this series going, because the last thing I would want to do is to just keep on making videos for a series people are not that interested into. So yeah, but stay happy, thanks for watching, and until next time, well, as I said, enjoy your season character, and bye bye.